Well, here we are, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. I know a lot of you were looking forward to this review, and frankly, so was I. Originally released in 1991 for the arcade machines, the game was later ported to the Super Nintendo in 1992. Now this is one of those instances where the port was considered better than the original, frankly because they added more extra content to it. I often see people on the internet that didn't grow up with the NES games usually only have played Turtles in Time. But regardless of whether you played the older Turtle games before Turtles in Time or not, this is still considered the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game to this day. Only time will tell if the upcoming beat 'em up Shredder's Revenge will overtake its crown. I'm still keeping my expectations in check for that one, but I'm sure it'll be a cool game. Turtles in Time though, like many, I had so many memories with this game. As a kid, I often played this game with my brother, and my friends would also come over and play it with me. Those were fun times, man, let me tell you. It helped when a lot of us were huge fans of the Ninja Turtles back then. We would not only play the video games, we would watch episodes of the cartoon and watch the movies from time to time, while eating pizza too. But what makes Turtles in Time still hold up to this day in comparison to the other Ninja Turtle video games? Well, let's take a look. That opening intro has that classic TMNT flair that you remember from the cartoon. Leo tearing through the screen to get that title screen. Woo! I do prefer the opening for the original arcade version of Turtles in Time because Pizza Power, awesome song. Regardless of what you think of the Coming Out of Our Shells tour, I admit, I have a guilty pleasure for that horrible mess of a concert, but the Super Nintendo intro gets you pumped up for what you're about to play. Now you'll notice on the title screen you have 5 options this time around. 1 player, 2 players, options, time trial, and versus mode. 1 and 2 players obviously take you to the main story. So the plot begins with April O'Neil doing a Channel 6 news in front of the Statue of Liberty, when suddenly Krang appears in a gigantic form of his body and takes off with it. Shredder appears on TV and laughs, and Leonardo calls him a bloated beanbag. There seems to be a loss in translation, as in the original arcade version Leo called Krang a bloated beanbag. Also, it's never explained why Shredder and Krang want this Statue of Liberty. They just decide to hold on to it. Sure, Shredder, whatever floats your boat. Now you jump into the gameplay and already it's a step up in the presentation thanks to the new 16-bit hardware. The turtles themselves look a lot more distinguished and differentiated this time around. No longer palette swaps, they all have their own unique stances and attack animations. Each turtle has their own stats and attributes. Leonardo's the most balanced and a good recommendation for new players. Michelangelo's the strongest but attacks the slowest. Donatello has the longest range but has slow ground speed. And finally, Raphael's the fastest both at fighting and on foot but has the weakest range. Now if you watched my previous TMNT videos, you probably noticed that I used Leo a lot. He's my overall favorite turtle. Bias aside, he's a good choice for new players, especially if you've never played a beat 'em up game before. He may be considered too basic for some players, but choosing him you'll likely have the least amount of trouble, and he even stings out regardless of the difficulty level. Michelangelo is probably my least favorite turtle to play as because while he's strong, he's just too slow for enemies and bosses such as Slash. Most players such as my co-op buddy prefers to play as Donatello because of his long range. And for good reason. His bow staff is able to reach foes from a distance. Distance is practically Donnie's middle name. What I like about playing as Raphael is that while he has the shortest range, he more than makes up for it with his overall speed. And speed can be very important when dealing with the more annoying enemies. Like in the last game, the turtles had their own unique signature moves, and like the last game, they still drain your health. The arcade version didn't have this problem. Why is this a thing in the Super Nintendo version? Once again, pizza restores your health.
Pizza time.
And thankfully, there's pizza in every level. The turtles can still use environmental objects to their advantage, such as traffic cones, fire hydrants, and explosive barrels. The barrels nuke every enemy on screen, and it's so satisfying. Just remember to move away once you hit one. Now for our enemies, we have our usual foot soldiers, rock soldiers, roadkill Rodneys, and mousers. The foot are more or less varied in variety as before. The ones that stand out to me the most are the ones that block your attacks, which you could just rush at them, and these Yellowfoot that throw some type of spike ball at you before it flies back to them like a boomerang. I find these two type of foot soldiers the most annoying, especially the yellow ones that throw these things at you. You definitely want to defeat these guys as soon as possible because once they attack and you get hit, they'll usually try to prevent you from fighting back. The moment you see these guys, do not give them the chance. Surprisingly, there's not many new enemies in this game, but if you watch the original cartoon, one of them is a nice treat. We have the yellow xenomorph-like creatures, the pizza monsters from the Case of the Killer Pizza episode. But it only takes one hit to defeat these guys, both in the arcade and the Super Nintendo versions. There's these many robots that throw electric ropes that tie you up. They also take one hit. Still, you have multiple ways to fight off these foes that will keep you entertained for hours. The turtles have a variety of moves. You have an attack button to chain enemies, you have a jump button to dodge. If you press the jump button and the attack button, you'll perform a landing kick attack, and you can also perform mid-air attacks in the air. Mid-air attacks depend on your timing and will have you perform either an air kick or swinging your weapon in the air just to descend your landing. A cool move used on foot soldiers is that when fighting them from a distance, you can either throw them off to the screen or slam them back and forth for a satisfying beatdown. If you time it right, you can slam them at other enemies, instantly killing them. I use these moves a lot and it comes very handy. Having all these different moves just make the turtles a lot more versatile this time around. So many different ways in defeating enemies, from melee attacks, combos to environmental attacks. It enriches the replay value, wanting you to come back for more. Turtles in Time features level aesthetics never before seen in a TMNT game before. Of course, you have your building level, your alley level, your sewer level, but then you get an exclusive level to the Super Nintendo version, the Technodrome. This level consists of 3 sections: your main hall level, your elevator level, and the room where you fight Shredder in. After you defeat Shredder, he escapes and decides to send you back in time, leading to the main gimmick of the game, time travel. You have your prehistoric level where you're avoiding running raptors, your pirate theme level where you're avoiding cannons and loose boards, your train level, your Mode 7 F-Zero level, your space level, and then the final battle with Super Shredder. I really like the Neon Knight Riders level as it reminds me a lot of F-Zero. It also looks beautiful and completely different from the original arcade version. There's a huge variety of bosses in this game. You have Fly Baxter Stockman, Metalhead, Rat King, Toka and Razor, Rocksteady and Bebop, and so much more. Toka and Razor, who were originally bosses in the pirate level, have been moved to the Technodrome level, whereas Rocksteady and Bebop have taken their place in the pirate level in this version. I always found it both funny and weird that once you defeat Rocksteady and Bebop, they start fighting each other and then die. Well, they used to fight a lot in the original cartoon despite being paired together. Once again, the soundtrack is great. Probably the best soundtrack in any TMNT game by far. Now honestly, I prefer the original soundtrack from the arcade version, but the Super Nintendo version soundtrack is just amazing. It's hard for me to pick a favorite track, but I do enjoy Starbase, Where No Turtle Has Gone Before. I also enjoy Neon Knight Riders. The soundtrack is so energetic and gets the adrenaline pumping. Now in the options menu, you can fiddle around with the controls, switch the design style from anime to comic, or switch between easy, normal, and hard mode. Hard mode gets you the best ending of the game. Trawl Mode has you facing against enemies in the fastest amount of time. It's really just for speedrunning purposes. I hardly ever go to this mode anymore. Then finally Versus, where you face off against another player in a fight. It's a fun little mode if you just want to beat each other up, and it is satisfying if you win. But wait, the Super Nintendo isn't the only console to get some turtle love. That's right, a separate Ninja Turtles game was released exclusively for the Sega Genesis. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Hyperstone Heist. The story is pretty similar to Turtles in Time, except there's no time travel, and instead of Krang taking the Statue of Liberty, it just randomly warps away. Turns out that Shredder warped the statue into a miniature figure at his hideout using the power of the Hyperstone, a powerful treasure from Dimension X. And oh boy, Shredder's looking pretty ripped here. He looks like something Rob Liefeld drew. I guess the plot makes a little bit more sense than just randomly taking the Statue of Liberty for no particular reason, but it's still pretty stupid. I mean, the silliness of these plots were in line with how the original cartoon was back in the day, so take that for what you will. So the Hyperstone Heist was released several months after Turtles in Time for the Super Nintendo. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, this game pretty much is Turtles in Time for the Sega Genesis. From the graphics, gameplay, and music, it borrows a lot from its Super Nintendo counterpart. But most importantly, the Sega Genesis is getting some Turtles in Time love. The Turtles pretty much have the exact same moves from Turtles in Time, but for some reason they removed the ability where you can throw foot soldiers off screen. So that's a shame. Compared to the Super Nintendo version, the Hyperstone Heist has less stages but are divided into 3 sections, making the stages longer. I actually like this as this gives the players more areas to fight through. In a way, you're kinda getting more stages than the Super Nintendo version. The stages themselves are pretty fun for the most part. Since we aren't dealing with time travel here, there aren't any historical levels. But the game has its own unique stages as well as a few stages from Turtles in Time. There aren't many bosses this time around, in fact I think it's this game's weakest aspect. The only boss unique to this game is Tatsu from the first 2 TMNT movies from the 90s. He was the only one that gave me a bit of a challenge. Aside from him, they only give you Leatherhead, Rocksteady, Baxter Stockman, Krang, and Super Shredder. Not to mention that all these boss fights are reused from past Turtles games. Baxter Stockman's fight is reused from the arcade game. The soundtrack reuses a lot of music from Turtles in Time, which isn't bad, though the sound quality isn't as good. Listening to it though, it is closer to the arcade version of Turtles in Time soundtrack. It's definitely more energetic. But yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Hyperstone Heist. Both games are fun and fantastic beat-em-ups that will have you coming back for more. My only gripe with Turtles in Time is that I find the game too easy. Maybe it's because I played this game so many times, whether it's on normal or hard mode, but I can beat this game lickety-split and no problem. One day I actually played through hard mode with all 4 turtles. And as for the Hyperstone Heist, while it's its own unique game, I think it could have done more with the variety. I would give the edge to Turtles in Time, but the Hyperstone Heist is also a great game. But back in the day, if you owned a Super Nintendo, you had Turtles in Time, and if you owned a Sega Genesis, you had the Hyperstone Heist. And with that Cowabunga collection coming out soon, if you never played either games, you might want to check it out. These games are well-crafted TMNT games for any fan out there. You don't even have to be a TMNT fan to enjoy these games. I highly recommend both of these games to anyone who wants a good beat 'em up, or just to have a fun time. But if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more videos to come. Anyway guys, take care and have yourselves a fantastic day.